Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Hope everyone is doing well. In today's video, we're still facing this Teemo pick in the jungle. I don't know why or who made this suggestion, but if it's a hard matchup, it'll make me a better Volibear player. Enjoy. I tried to go for our usual full clear, but there was a lot of activity on my red side and bot side. Nobody wanted to check, so I went for the gamble. Maybe they're starting my red. If they are, the only logical move is for us to do the same, but what happened is that they were just trying to place wards there. I simply outplayed myself, and with that, we made our first mistake in this game. Luckily, we managed to get the red buff, which is fine because we at least got the experience and didn't die beforehand. Also, you can see here that the nerfs are hitting us pretty hard because, let's say we used our E 3 times, always off cooldown. This means we just spent an extra 6 seconds wasted. That time was just enough for Teemo to catch us while we were doing the buff, which could have given us room to escape, but still it's fine. We just need to get used to this new way of life. It was a good call for my team to not roam because this mistake falls totally on me. I went for a call with little information beforehand and an untested nerf to estimate my clear time. But the good thing is that our camps are still there. It's interesting to look at this unusual bot lane composition. Anivia as support and Lux as ADC, or more accurately, APC. It's honestly very weird, and I don't know why they thought this would be a good pick. A better pick might have been Anivia as the carry and Tam Kench as support, because once Anivia turns into an egg, Tam Kench could eat her and escape. And I think that if Anivia gets eating, her storm form could get disabled, which would be an interesting experiment to test later. In my opinion, this composition is very weak because Anivia is mana hungry and heavily item reliant, traits you don't need in a support in any lane or game mode. After many attempts in previous games against Lux players, I've found the best way to gank a Lux, or any mid-lane mage with limited crowd control like Syndra, is to flank them from behind right after they use their spells to clear the wave. Since we're playing Volibear, we can disable the tower, which is a huge advantage. This play is even more effective if we have flash. After watching Riot August with his weird commentary and cringe ideas on champion comparisons regarding dashes and mobility, I think I'm about to discover something incredibly fun with Volibear that I want to try right later. Now, of course, ganks on Teemo aren't the easiest, but they do pack a lot of impact. Since our champ has a lot of staying power, I think the most effective thing a Teemo player does is try to tilt you until you start hating the game each time you die. Against most mages, especially in a bot lane with a double mage composition, dodging their crowd control makes them sitting ducks. Early in the game, once you've built up some health, their damage isn't too threatening, specifically against Lux. If the Lux player isn't experienced, they'll often throw both abilities at once. The really annoying Lux players, however, will space out their abilities. For example, they'll hit you with an E to slow you down, and when you try to move out of it, they'll land a stun or another spell to lock you down. The same goes for Anivia. She'll place her storm, and the second you try to escape, she'll throw up a wall. If you dash over the wall, she'll then throw a stun, keeping you stuck in place. But if you manage to dodge all of this, they're left with nothing, making them completely vulnerable. This death stems from a weird feeling that I get from playing against off-meta picks or what they have become lately, simply trolls. It's like that famous story where a lion gets challenged by a pig. When the lion ignores the challenge, others ask why. The lion responds, "The moment I was challenged by a pig, the pig had already won." And if you wonder why, because if the lion wins, people say, well, he only beat a pig. But if he refuses the challenge, people say, he's afraid of the pig. This is exactly how it feels going up against trolls. If you beat them, it means nothing. If you lose, it's worse because they weren't even playing the proper role. You just can't win with these players. But since we are still in this game, I started using Herald as my personal transportation device. My intention isn't always to crash Herald into a tower. I just want to be with my team. At that moment, I felt the tempo of the game was high, and the enemy team seemed to be slacking. So I thought if I reached mid lane right then, I could make a big impact. Unfortunately, it didn't lead to much, though we did manage to get both towers. You might notice in this game that we followed our regular approach, but instead of finishing Winter's approach, once we fully stacked our tier, I decided to go for Spirit Visage. The reason is simple. They have 4 AP champions. When the enemy team has 4 AP champions, the value you get from building magic resistance is massive. Naturally, the best items are the ones that already synergize with our champion, and in this case, Spirit Visage is ideal. There's no need to go for Force of Nature or Rookern. Spirit Visage alone will handle their damage up until our 4th or 5th item. At that point, we can decide if we need to stack more magic resistance or shift toward more damage. After the 20-minute mark in the game, as a jungler, you should never die. This is a rule of thumb. Dying is prohibited because if you die, Baron is essentially free for the enemy team, with very few exceptions. So yes, the moment Teemo died, It led to an automatic Baron for our team. Now, in this specific encounter, you'll see the value of runes, and you might wonder what items we have to deal with Irelia. The answer is none. We don't have any armor items. We only have one rune, conditioning. Since we've reached this stage of the game, we gain an extra 10 armor. And that's huge because we didn't build any armor items. This armor value makes it look like Irelia does no damage to us, even though we don't have actual armor items. The reality is that thanks to conditioning and the fact that Irelia is a bit behind, Volibear appears to counter Irelia, but the truth is, nobody counters Irelia. Once she gets Blade of the Ruined King, she's already a full build. Thankfully, we ended up dying here because if we didn't and someone at Riot saw this clip, Volibear might get another nerf, so I'd say this was an absolute win for us. Well, thankfully, with everything that happened in this game, I'm happy with the situation. At first, after watching a lot of top Volibear players go against Teemo with fleet footwork, and swiftness is a total nightmare, hence my overwhelming precaution. Also, I noticed that junglers these days are predominantly played by champions that have high movement speed. You can't catch them, and they keep bothering you until you either lose the game or your mental health. But after this encounter, I feel more familiar with the matchup, and I believe Volibear can do well against Teemo with the correct itemization. It was a fun experience, and I'm looking forward to future matches against Teemo players because I now have a strategy to exterminate any pests and rodents in the jungle. In the second game, when I don't get to play Volibear, I get a little bit upset because the point of playing League of Legends for me is to play Volibear. I don't find any champion as fun to play as him, in my personal opinion. So if I'm not having fun, I don't want anyone else to have fun either. The only option we have is Sir Homelessness, Udyr, with Phase Rush to ensure that no one is having fun except for us. It's the perfect pick to ruin everyone's games while we're running around looking like fools. Well, similarly to the previous game, we're adopting Night Blue's approach to win unfavorable matches, which is to camp the bot side. Sadly, Cassiopeia as an AP carry isn't the best starter for ganks, but not ganking them will backfire since this gank is akin to state funding for startup projects in the hope of it succeeding. As much as I hate this approach and would rather gank the top side, we're not playing Volibear. So a bad start for a bad game is the fitting theme. Of course, I dislike bot side for this specific reason. If fights prolong too much on either side, the odds of someone dying increase significantly. You might want to help, but at that moment, you're not really feeling the vibe of the fight. So you come in mid-fight, and you end up getting your face pushed in. Now, of course, after full clearing and sitting in a bush on the bot side might seem like the best approach in League of Legends. And the reason is simple. Even if you don't go for objectives, once you kill 2 players, you gain a lot of gold. And if you manage to kill both of them and the jungler, you can secure a free tower. When you do that, you bring your support along because it looks like you are helping both sides. So you earn favor with 2 champions in the game. You all share a little gold and experience. And if nothing happens, you've given your bot side a favorable feeling of comfort and security since you were there with them for a long period of time. So, while this may seem like an ass-kissing technique, in my opinion, if your champion gets picked and you don't feel like the game is going your way, then just do whatever it takes to survive until the next game. And of course, you might notice that I picked the red pet, which is a pretty rare choice to go for damage. This sends a clear message. I'm playing this game to kill you all. I'm not here for any objective or strategic approach. I'm just running people down and waiting for you to die slowly while you burn. Simple and clear. Of course, you still need to focus on objectives and full clears, but the main goal of the game is to take down all your enemies. It's as straightforward as that. Same situation here, but sometimes I forget that I'm not Volibear. I'm Udyr, and the crowd control is much worse for us. If we get caught, we're dead, and unlike Volibear, once you get caught, there aren't many options for escaping the situation. That's why we picked Phase Rush in the first place. But sometimes your mind slips, and you make silly decisions that turn into big mistakes, leading to your death, and then you end up looking like an idiot for it. Playing Udyr, especially as AP, is all about knowing when to engage and how to navigate fights. Sometimes you need to hold back, while other times, you can burst down an isolated target. Slowing enemies can disrupt their plans, and using your shield is crucial for survival. If things go wrong, don't hesitate to run. The key is making smart decisions at the right moments, keeping it simple without relying on hard skill shots or flashy mechanics. As a matter of fact, playing Udyr isn't flashy. You rely on your back as a shield, fists as weapons, and legs for movement. Surprisingly, the enemy team didn't go for the Drake, so when my team started to take it, I decided to help out. My original plan was to clear camps, buy items, and only show up when truly needed. But I thought, why not join them? Sometimes not every call needs to be rational or well-reasoned. You can just support your team until the end, no matter how the game unfolds. When it comes to Corki mid, I think it's a strong pick. Maybe even too strong and in need of a nerf. If you get counterpicked by Corki, it can be a tough day for you. It's baffling how Riot's balance team operates when adjusting champions. Take Corki, for instance. He used to be incredibly popular and frustrating to play against, so they decided to change him, claiming his playstyle was linear and boring. Fast forward, and now they're saying they need more diversity, praising Corki's old playstyle as fun. Seriously, what's going on? We're the same players from years ago. You can't just flip your stance like this and expect us not to notice. If you're going to make changes, at least try to be subtle about it. Don't make it so obvious or you'll just look foolish. I'm starting to see August's point about how dashing over walls is a big deal in League of Legends. There's a significant difference between champions who can do it and those who can't. But I like to think that in the face of raw power, techniques don't mean much. They're just tools for the weak. Take Herald, for instance. The real powerhouse. It represents the culmination of all our efforts in the game, taking towers and pushing to the Nexus. It has 0 dashes but boasts 100% CC immunity, much like Udyr's awakened E. In the end, it's that raw, unstoppable force that matters most. When it comes to dashes, if your E spell isn't a dash in Riot's eyes, you might as well be obsolete. You become that champion stuck in the corner, only there to satisfy a small part of the community. It's straightforward. If you don't have a dash, your skills don't get much attention. Dashes represent skill expression and superior techniques. That's why new champions either deny dashes, grant them, or have unlimited dashes. It's just ridiculous. To be fair, the Viego did something that actually impressed me a bit. While we were chasing, he decided to do the Drake, forsaking his teammate, and he even came up with an escape plan in his mind. So, credit where it's due, he made a good play. The real issue here, though, was with his teammate. Instead of running away from him, they charged right toward him. Seriously, if your jungler is sneaking an objective, the last thing you want to do is run towards them. That Shen should definitely be reported for leading us into his ally. But thanks to their poor decision-making, we managed to snag another kill just from how the enemy team was positioning. Sure, in this game we didn't have Volibear, and we didn't gain a superior map advantage, but sometimes you just don't need to outplay the game. You can simply play it, do what you want, and hope for the best. If my teammates weren't average or good players, this could have been a horrible experience. But even without the flashy techniques, Udyr embodies a classic concept of this game. You don't need dashes or skill shots to win, you just need to be a fun champion to be able to win. But sadly, no one can define fun objectively. And with that, we wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe, and for the other dear viewers, don't forget to give it a like and share your comments. Until Riot comes up with new ideas to keep us in awe in front of their sheer stupidity, take care everyone, and peace.